Atlanta sports fans and NFL fans. It's the Atlanta Sports Unlimited Facebook page with your weekly fantasy football show. I'm your host, Dave Holcomb, with my partner in crime, as always, Tom Pollen. Our apologies for starting a little bit late today. We don't have our producer, Chris Smitherman, with us today. And Chris is a huge part of our show, and really his first responsibility is making sure we start on time.
Yes.
So we miss you, Chris. We hope you're doing okay. Driving around for your job this morning and this afternoon. But we have a great show for you today. I think we'll probably still get out at 1 o'clock. We don't have a ton of, meaty game. There's no games. So we'll get into some off-season stuff, talk a little bit about last week's games, and probably save the Super Bowl stuff for next week, I would think.
I would think so, yeah. Yeah, when it's we're a little closer to the game. So we'll have Hall of Fame to talk next week, too.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And I know that's a topic that you really love. And are you doing your bust article?
Yep. Started working on it. So, but writing 15 capsules for, 15 nominees, it gets to be a little, it takes some time. So.
Right. I'm glad you already started because
I am working on it. I've started it. So yes.
Right. Again, apologies for starting late, but we hope you join us here for the next 45 minutes or so. Send us a comment if you want us to hit a topic this week. And I guess Chris usually puts up the comments too. That's
he does.
His job. So one of us will have to get into the Facebook page and see if we get any comments. We're going to discuss a little David Culley going to the Houston Texans.
Culley. Yeah.
David Culley going to the Houston Texans. He's their new head coach. And we're going to get to quarterback market as well. It's really a hot quarterback market. I've got some questions for you, Tom, about just the history.
This is going to be this is going to be a wild year for quarterbacks. I don't think I've ever seen as many potential moves as we're going to get this offseason.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to ask you. The history buff that you are, just can you think of another offseason where so many quarterbacks, great quarterbacks, were entering the offseason with major question marks, whether or not they're going to be back with their teams?
No, I don't. I can't. I've tried during the week, and I've been mulling this over in my mind for a couple of days, and I really don't see a year where we've had this kind of turmoil before. It just seems like a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of people who they thought were going to be franchise quarterbacks are falling off the table, and it seems like there are going to be some teams that want to start over. So I can't wait to see how this ends up. I said on Twitter this week, I usually do one mock draft just for the heck of it, just because you're expected to as a writer.
Yeah, it's
I'm not even doing a mock draft this year because you don't know what trades are going down this year. This is going to be, we'll see how things shake out in free agency, but I think a lot of the trades are going to go down on draft day, and I just don't want any part of doing a mock draft for that.
And from a fantasy perspective, because our show is fantasy-centric, it's going to be a really rough offseason in terms of trying to determine your player's value because you don't know who your player's quarterback is going to be. You might not even have some of these quarterbacks, but, I mean, what is Aaron Jones's value if Aaron Rodgers isn't there? Well, we don't know that yet.
We don't know, right. And Devontae Adams. Then you got, what's going to happen with the Eagles if Jalen Hurts is their starting quarterback and Carson Wentz is gone. Jared Goff in Los Angeles, it looks like they're ready to move on from him. It's, how do you figure all of this? The Bears aren't going to have Mitch Trubisky. Who's going to end up quarterbacking the Bears? It's not going to be Nick Foles, not after what he showed last year. So, it's crazy for fantasy, especially I feel bad for dynasty leagues What
Well,
are you going to do for your quarterback as you go into dynasty? Yeah, I'm not an expert on dynasty, Dave. You're the one who goes there, but I would have to think you're looking for trades in dynasty. You're looking to see who you can draft in dynasty, because you're really you have to be tearing your hair out right now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think this is the off season that you don't try and make a trade before the draft, and maybe you don't do that normally anyway. I think a lot of kind of similar to the NFL, a lot of dynasty offseason trades happen closer to your draft, and that's probably in August around preseason time.
Right.
But I like to try and explore, well, can I get somebody to buy in on a guy that had a really great postseason that really isn't going to have a great regular season next year, or like a Julian Edelman type? Not that he isn't a great player, but somebody that like had a great postseason run a couple years ago, won the MVP. Can I get a sucker to kind of overpay for somebody like that? Right? Can I get somebody who's not paying attention to trade for somebody who's a free agent, and they forget about that, or something like that? I don't think that is a thing you can explore this year, because it might backfire, because you're trading for or trading away somebody that maybe he's playing with Deshaun Watson, maybe isn't going to play with Deshaun Watson,
right.
and not greatly like Devontae Adams. I think no matter who's his quarterback, he's going to be one of a top 10, right? A top 10 wide receiver. But somebody like, I don't know, Braden Cooks or
Super Cup.
DeAndre Swift could have a huge boost in value because he's going to get a lot more carries, or he could have his value go down if the quarterback position isn't as good as it was with Stafford. So like, there's so many unknowns. It's hard to know that you're making a good trade.
Right. Exactly. DeAndre Swift might pick up this year because he's got a coach that actually might concentrate on the running game a little bit more.
Right.
And that plays a lot into it too, is the coaches, and who these coaches end up with, to run their offenses. So, I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers is still going to be in Green Bay. I don't see any move there. I don't think anybody's going to trade for him. He's got a big contract. He's going to be 37, I think, or 38. And the Packers aren't going to do anything with him. He's got a huge dead cap number, like $35 million if they cut him. So, they're kind of in a hole with Aaron Rodgers. They have to keep him. So, but
let's go through the list of names. Although we did just get a comment from Gary Holcomb. I have heard that the 2021 NFL salary cap will be less than in 2020. Let's see if oh, here we go. Oh, look at that. I figured out how to do it.
I'll be darned. It came up.
How will that affect the QB free agent market? So, great question, Gary, and we want to have our comments continue to send in our questions. That is the other kind of crazy thing with this offseason, right? Is not only do we have all these free agent quarterbacks and quarterback movement, which is unusual, we also have the unusual thing of the salary cap going down because of the pandemic.
Yes. And I don't know where the salary cap is going to settle. There's been a lot of rumors about it. And that's one of the things that I think people were overlooking a lot over this past season is you've got a salary. You have no idea where they're going to settle on the salary cap, and they're going to have to negotiate with the players union on this thing. And it's going to hurt the free agent quarterback market. The ones who are already under contract are okay. But like, say, Mitch Trubisky, he's going to be a free agent. Who's going to give him starting quarterback money is, especially after you saw what he did against the Packers and Saints.
Yeah.
But how are you? It's a great question, and it's one I don't think we can answer now, because I don't know where the cap's going to settle in, and I think that's going to affect how these moves are made going into the offseason. We might not see any movement until late in the offseason, until some of these questions kind of settle in. We might get more info on the salary cap March 7th when the new league year begins and free agency can start. And then we'll start seeing what kind of offers are out there and what they're doing.
It's going to hurt every free agent this offseason, no doubt.
Yes.
And it's going to hurt quarterbacks maybe the most because they make the most money, to answer Gary's question. I
think it just occurred to me, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Dave.
No problem.
I think we're going to see. Oh, see, Zozo, she's got her opinion too. I think we're going to see a lot of short contracts this time. A lot of 1 and 2 year deals. I don't think we're going to see a lot of long-term contracts until we get past this COVID situation. They get the salary cap straightened out.
And that could benefit players too. I know NFL players, especially because of the risk of injury, they want to be locked into those long-term guaranteed contracts. But if you're not going to make a lot of money on this, this offseason, you don't want to be locked into a long-term deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to see a lot of 1 year, 2 year deals, and everybody's going to be in a holding pattern for at least next year and maybe the year after, until the money situation settles down again.
Last point I wanted to make, in reference to the salary cap affecting quarterbacks, I'd have to take a deeper dive into who else is under contract that maybe this could happen to. But Ben Roethlisberger comes to mind. He has a huge salary cap hit, and I think one of the things that the Steelers are always really close to the salary cap, but they particularly are this year, and it's a problem because the salary cap's going down. How many quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks like Roethlisberger, are going to be asked to take a pay cut? You said if you're under contract, you're fine, and I think that's true. But if you're a Roethlisberger, you're close to the end of your career, you want to try and win a Super Bowl, right? So maybe it's in your best interest to try and help the team out to take a pay cut, or is it going to be turned into a game of chicken of, well, if you don't take the pay cut, or the Steelers maybe going to cut you? And, there's plenty of other quarterbacks they could try and get, because there's a lot of available names.
I think there's potential for both. I really do. I think there's potential for everybody playing a little bit of chicken. Or, it depends. They might be interested in a restructuring. You still get your money, but it's going to be deferred bonuses. They have so many ways they can hide the cap that it's really something to. Yeah, it's a good question, Dave. As I say, there's so much uncertainty right now. I don't know if it can be answered. So,
well, let's go through. We've thrown out quite a few names already, but this was a great tweet from Adam Schefter this week. He listed, I think it's 10 names that have futures in question, quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Dak Prescott, Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, Cam Newton, Teddy Bridgewater, Mitch Trubisky, Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Alex Smith, and Ben Roethlisberger.
That's a hell of a list. And Schefter's usually right on top of these things. So,
that doesn't even include Drew Brees, who hasn't officially retired yet, but is probably going to retire. That doesn't include Phillip Rivers and the Colts. Phillip Rivers did retire, so the Colts have an opening. So this is, I don't want to, just continue to repeat ourselves, but it really is crazy the amount of uncertainty at quarterback with all these names.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because you got, I mean, Trubisky and Bridgewater, and who else is going to be a free agent? I think Jameis Winston. You got the free agents who are um, going to kind of mix up the water a little bit, and then you have the names of teams who seem to have given up on who were franchise quarterbacks a couple of years ago. Like Carson Wentz got the Eagles off to a 9-1 start before he got injured. Nick Foles cleaned it up and went to the Super Bowl, but Carson Wentz put that team in position.
I think they were even better than 9-1. I think he played into December and was, I'm not sure, 12-1, maybe 10-1. He did very well at the beginning of that season. Yeah.
I mean, he looked like the man that you're going to want as your quarterback for the next 10 years. And 2 years later, and he's, his future's up in the air. Jared Goff went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. You don't know what's happening with Jared Goff, because all of a sudden it seems like, and I don't know why they think they're going to get something out of Paul Wolford, but it seems like they're going to let Wolford compete for the job, or pick up one of these quarterbacks who are on the market. But Jared Goff, he's slipped so far after being a Super Bowl quarterback and looking like he was going to be the man for the Rams for the next 10 years. So
I read this week that the Rams are willing to eat the $22 million cap hit they would take by trading Goff and then pay a new starter on top of that, a Matthew Stafford or an Aaron Rodgers, if they could get their hands on him. How badly do you want to get rid of Jared Goff if you're willing to do that?
Right, exactly. It's incredible how far these guys have fallen. Where you're willing to eat contract and basically get them off your team.
Right. Yeah. This list, to bring it back to our fan base here in Atlanta, this list doesn't include Matt Ryan either.
Well, that's true. Which I don't think Matt Ryan's going anywhere. I think he's still going to be there, but you're only going to get another year or two out of Matt Ryan. You got to find somebody who's going to be taking over the team after him. You've had a great run with a franchise quarterback, but he's not the guy anymore. So so do you pick up somebody now that is going to inherit the job, or do you just keep running with Ryan? I mean, that's a lot of how that goes. Zozo, come on.
And the Falcons with the number 4 pick, it's one of those top 3 quarterbacks falls just one spot.
I would say you have to take him.
Yeah.
I would say you have to take him. You got no choice. And they're talking about Deshaun Watson. Just wait, Dave. You'll get to this one of these days. This is all the stuff you have to look forward to.
Right. You remind me every week.
I know. But, Deshaun Watson, I had a few Twitter conversations this week where I think the Miami Dolphins are actually in a good position. If Houston is going to go ahead and trade him, and I'm not so sure they might go ahead and just sit him and fine him. But what does that get you? What good does a franchise quarterback do for you if he's sitting on the bench, or if he's not even reporting and you're just finding him week to week?
Right.
But I was thinking Miami might be in the strongest position to pick up Deshaun Watson because they have the 3rd and 18th pick in this year's draft, and use that 3rd pick to go ahead and roll the dice on your next quarterback of the future.
That's Houston's original pick, right?
What?
That's Houston's. That was Houston's pick.
That was Houston's pick, right? That originally started as Houston's pick.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange there too.
Yeah.
But you could take that pick, and I'm sure if your Watson's going to go to Miami, are they going to hold on to Tua?
Well, yeah. This might just be a Twitter trade because there are lots of trades proposed
Right.
on Twitter that just never happened. But I've seen Tua and a draft pick for Deshaun Watson floated out there.
Yeah, as I say, I think Miami has the pick to make it work. Now, there are a ton of Bears fans who would like to see Watson come to Chicago. And
Wow, there's lots of Steelers fans that wanted to see Deshaun Watson in Pittsburgh, but it's not happening.
yeah, but see, the Bears should have Watson right now.
I mean, that's true. Yeah, that is
true. They took, Mitch Trubisky and let Watson sit out there and lost their chance at guy who's turned out to be a very good quarterback. He had a hell of a year last year. He's really emerged as a guy that you can count on every year to lead your team. So, but the Bears don't have the assets to get him, and that is an internet trade. That's never going to happen.
Right, yeah, and you need the salary cap space too. In addition to the assets that you're willing to give up, and you have to be in a situation where you're good enough that you don't have to use those assets to make other parts of your team better. You can give up those assets if you have them. Then you need the salary cap space, which that's rare to have if you already have all of the pieces elsewhere in your team because you're probably spending money on those players.
You're capped up. You've determined your starters on offense and defense that are your major pieces, and you've done everything you can with them. And Watson is on an existing contract. So, how do you handle that?
Right. Not on a rookie deal. He's a expensive quarterback you got to make room for.
Yeah, they extended him. So,
yeah. This is a good transition into the coaching conversation that we've had the last couple of weeks. New head coach in Houston, David Culley, coming from the Baltimore Ravens, spent a long time with Andy Reid. We've been clamoring for an Andy Reid assistant to get hired, and the one that we thought would get hired has not been hired.
Not been hired.
Right, yeah. And, he kind of had an unusual path to becoming a head coach. He was passing game coordinator the last 2 seasons, along with wide receiver coach and offensive assistant in Baltimore. Yeah. I forget his actual title in Buffalo, but he was in Buffalo for 1 season in 2018. Was he passing game coordinator there as well?
I'm looking it up right now. I got his record in front of me.
Okay.
He was the Bills quarterbacks coach.
Quarterbacks coach. That's right. So he was wide receiver coach for a long time in Philadelphia, and then followed Andy Reid to Kansas City. And then spent 1 year as quarterbacks coach and then passing game coordinator in Baltimore. So it's not the traditional, let's hire the next genius offensive coordinator move, or a head coach or a former defensive coordinator like a Robert Saleh, who's been on a winning team, a Super Bowl team. It's an untraditional hire. Doesn't mean it can't work. John Harbaugh. It was an untraditional hire as well from Andy Reid, Culley coming from the same fold in Andy Reid and Harbaugh. So I think the Texans, there's things to like about the hire, but the thing that you really don't like about it is Deshaun Watson doesn't like it, clearly.
Right. Clearly doesn't like it. And Culley said that he understood the Deshaun Watson situation. He still went over there and signed as head coach.
I read that he, maybe this is just him saving face in a press conference, but he said, I came here under the assumption Deshaun Watson would be here. I want Deshaun Watson to be here. Deshaun Watson is going to be here. And again, that might just be him trying to convince Deshaun Watson to come play for him. But did he kind of get blindsided by the idea that Watson isn't going to play for him? And he took the job knowing, he had to have taken the job knowing that Watson was going to be there, right? Because Watson is the only thing going for the Texans.
Yes, exactly. In the interview, it's possible that, McNair, the owner of the team, and Easterby kind of convinced him that they were going to win over Watson. They were going to get Watson in. And again, Watson's under contract. You don't necessarily have to trade him. Right. If he wants to play football in 2021, at this point, it's going to have to be for the Houston Texans. He doesn't have any other options unless they can work out a trade. But, this is definitely a game of chicken. You were talking about a game of chicken earlier. Who's going to blink first? Does Watson come in, or can Houston work out a trade? But yeah, I think they convinced Culley that he would have Watson as his quarterback and be able to build around him. But and he does have some bona fide. He's not a name that ever came up during the whole coaching process, the interview process. We never heard his name until he came up in Texas.
Right. He was. I forget where I read this. I think it was The Athletic. That was the only team that interviewed Culley. The Texans were the only team interested in him, and that doesn't mean much other than he wasn't a hot name.
Right. It doesn't mean much, but and he does have a background. He's been with some experienced people. He knows. He's been with some winning coaches, so he knows how a winning program runs. Yeah. And sometimes you get one of these hot new coordinators, and they start concentrating on their side of the football a little too much, and they can't. Maybe they're spending most of their time with the offense. They don't pay as much attention to the defense. You got to have somebody who's paying attention to both sides of the ball, and I think that's something they're definitely getting in Culley. He's not going to be overlooking one side of the ball, maybe letting his defensive assistant, more or less run his defense. But he's got the credentials that you think Watson might like. But there might be more wrong with that organization than first thought, and maybe it's more the organization that Watson, is rebelling against and wants to get out of. I heard J.J. Watt is thinking about, what his future is in Houston. So
I would not be surprised at all if Watt isn't back. I think he won't be back, to be honest.
Yeah, so. You got a bad situation there to begin with players who really don't want to be there right now. So you're almost going to be in rebuilding mode as it is, unless you can keep these two, leaders of your offense and defense.
And I think that's why I kind of like the Culley hire, because it's more of, as you said, it's not a guy to come in and groom a quarterback. It's not somebody to come in and fix a defensive problem. Culley is going to be the CEO, and he's overseeing a change in culture in Houston. And obviously Houston wants their stars to be there as a part of that, especially Watson, but they just needed a change in the environment. And maybe Culley is that's I think that's why they chose him over an Eric Bieniemy. Not that Bieniemy couldn't do that, but Bieniemy was more of a offensive mind. Less of a leader type, like Culley supposedly is.
Yeah, just as that's the thing. Bieniemy might be a guy who spends more of his time on offense, but he's got so much experience in football as it is. It's hard to say that he wouldn't. He wouldn't have enough knowledge on defense to know what. Who to hire and who to put in place and what kind of system he wants to run. But you're going to get that out of Cully. Cully's going to be leaning on his assistants quite a bit for how they want to run the team. His thoughts about how he wants the team to be run is going to play a big part in what assistants go there, what defensive and offensive coordinator he can get, and he will oversee both sides of the ball. And that's the thing. That's how he's going to run it. So I like the fact that they have a coach who's going to do it that way. But I think Bieniemy might have been the one who could have saved the situation on the field.
You can ask this question really with any superstar, and I think it probably gets asked in the NBA the most because the stars in the NBA have the most power. But how much power do you give a player in when you're searching for a coach? And look, I'm an outsider looking in, but kind of reading between the lines, it seemed like Watson wanted Bieniemy. So then you kind of, as a Houston Texan fan, or as maybe the Texans owner, the question kind of becomes, well, do you make that hire just for Watson if your preference is somebody else? And the answer to that question for them was no, but the consequence might be they're not going to have a franchise quarterback. And that's just, I respect that they made the decision for what they thought was best for their organization. However, what's best for your organization is that Deshaun Watson is your quarterback.
Yes. And needs to be your quarterback and is a franchise quarterback and could be an elite quarterback in the league for a long time to come. So, and are you going to pass on that? Are you going to
well, they did.
Are you going to poison that situation now? Because
they did. Maybe I'm not saying it's not salvageable, but they did not go with the person that Watson reportedly preferred.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I think they're in a position where they're going to have to trade him. I
think so too.
But it's wild to think that somebody of Watson's caliber would end up on the trading block and actually change teams. You don't see franchise quarterbacks changing teams. It just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what makes this, again, it's such a strange year for quarterbacks because this shouldn't happen, but it is going to happen. I think Texans are going to have to trade him, and I think they're going to take a quarterback in the draft and start over with a new franchise quarterback.
I agree. I think Watson, you laid out all the reasons why Watson doesn't have leverage. He's under contract. If he really wants to play, the Texans could play hardball, fine him, and then he could pull Le'Veon Bell and just not show up all season. Right. That could happen. But I think Watson has a lot more leverage in the sense of, he plays quarterback, of course, so he plays the most important position. And I just don't think the Houston Texans want to go in with a new head coach where they're trying to change the culture, and every single week the conversation becomes, when is Watson coming in? Are you going to come to terms with Deshaun Watson? Or, what are you going to do to fix the situation? It becomes a huge distraction right at the beginning of a new coach's tenure, and you're in a rebuild even with Deshaun Watson. Of course, you want to rebuild with him, of course. But I agree with you. I think they're going to have to just start from scratch.
Yeah. It's rough to say, and it's something you just never see. But yeah, it's going to have to. They're going to have to do it that way. So that's going to be the big thing: is where does Watson end up? And as I think Miami has enough pieces to actually be able to pull off that trade. They have the assets to do it.
So do you think he'll be the first domino to fall in all of these quarterbacks? I mean, are teams going to wait to see if they can get Deshaun Watson, and then after he goes somewhere, then we'll start to see, other teams maybe go for Jared Goff or Matt Stafford, or is Watson kind of like a long-term thing and we're going to see some other guys move for? What do you think?
Oh boy. You just, I mean, that's what questions say.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Stafford might move early because Stafford has a track record. Stafford can't beat teams with a winning record. But, but he does put up numbers. He puts up passing numbers every year. He looks great, when he's out there. And I could see a team thinking that if we could just bring Matt Stafford in, we can make a run at the playoffs, considering he's never won a playoff game before in his career, though. But other than that,
I think there'll be teams that say, well, he's been in Detroit his whole career. Detroit can't do anything right. We'll bring in Stafford to a winning organization, and then he'll be able to take us to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that will happen. So I think Stafford will move. I think the teams that know they don't have the assets to bring in Deshaun Watson will start looking at some of these other quarterbacks and see what they can do and what kind of moves can be made. Because, again, you're looking at Carson Wentz. This is a guy who, he's been on a Super Bowl winner. He took that team almost all the way, before getting hurt. And a lot of teams think that they can be the solution, that they can fit. We got this quarterback. We know what's wrong. We can fix him, and he can be the guy who takes us where we want to go. And that thought process goes. A lot of teams have that thought process. We're the ones who can fix him. Doesn't really work a lot of times, but because it turns out it's the quarterback after all. But we're the ones who can fix him. We know what's wrong. We got to fix that footwork a little bit. His release point's a little bit off. If we can fix that, he's going to be our championship quarterback. So I think some of these guys are, the teams that know they don't have a chance at Watson are going to be taking their flyer on maybe Jameis Winston, see if they can, cut down on his interceptions. I don't know how they do that, though. But, Teddy Bridgewater, who he had strong stretches with the Saints, the season before, not 2019. And for a while early last year, I thought he was connecting with Matt Rule in Carolina very nicely. I thought actually that was going to be a good partnership, but he kind of slipped as the season went on. So, there might be a team that says, well, Bridgewater is quality. He was quality when he came into the league. His career was almost over because of his injury, ankle injury.
Right.
But now he's back. He's been back a couple of years. We can turn him into that winner. He can win with us. So don't be surprised if somebody takes a flyer on Bridgewater. The same way. You're going to get those kind of deals that are going to be done first. And then I think a large portion of the trading deals, like Wentz and Goff and everybody, are going to be done after Watson falls, and we'll see what happens there.
Right. And we're calling this a crazy quarterback year, and it is. But you remember, just a year ago, we had Tom Brady on the free agent market, Philip Rivers. Drew Brees was deciding whether or not to come back. Teddy Bridgewater signed just last year with Carolina.
Right.
Jameis Winston left Tampa Bay. Cam Newton ended up in New England. So, I know I don't want to ask you another hard question, Tom, but I just ask it.
Go for it.
Just a rhetorical question that you can try and answer if you want. Is this the new norm? Is this are we just going to see franchise quarterbacks or veteran quarterbacks with a couple years left, like an Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, finish up their careers elsewhere? Is it just is quarterback? It used to be that we never see trades in the NFL, and that's kind of stopped. That's kind of ended. There are more trades now than before, and trade deadline deals, not a lot, but more than before.
They are there.
I just wonder if, is this the 21st century NFL, 2020 NFL, where even franchise quarterbacks are you're not guaranteed to finish your career with one team, even if you're a Hall of Famer.
Well, the strange thing is it's kind of been a history in the NFL, even if you're a Hall of Famer, that you end your career in another city, maybe for 1 or 2 years.
True. And maybe I should rephrase that.
You look at Joe Montana, Johnny Unitas, Joe Namath. A lot of these guys didn't end up with the teams that they're identified with. So, but
I guess I should rephrase that. Like Matt Stafford is only 33. Right. Deshaun Watson is in his 20s. Guys more in their prime seem to be on the move.
Yes, and I get that. I think I kind of understood where you're going with that. Because you're right. Stafford still has some years ahead of him. And that may be the case. It just might. It might be the new norm in the NFL. It's going to be interesting to see in the next few years. You might not see too many more Drew Brees or Matt Ryan or Eli Manning or guys like that. Hell, Peyton Manning finished up with the Colts. With the Broncos. So
right.
Tom Brady finishes with Tampa. So it's really weird. But yeah, the younger guys who are your franchise guys who have established themselves at quarterback for your team. It's I think if the team is winning, yeah, but at some point, if you're not winning with that guy, I think maybe the team gets to a point where they're giving up on him, or they're thinking, we just can't do it with this guy. So it's going to be interesting to see as we move forward, but it might be a new norm that, we haven't gone. This has been our number one draft pick. He's put up big yards. He's put up big numbers, but we've never gone anywhere with him. And the quarterback says, well, I've been with this team. I've been giving this team everything, and we haven't gone anywhere. And they decide to part ways. And we might see more of that in the future.
I can get why, like, Matt Stafford wants to leave. I can see why Dak Prescott watched the end of that Cowboys season and he's like, man, maybe I should go play for somebody else. But if I'm the Lions, where you just were so bad before Stafford got there, and yeah, okay, you haven't won with Stafford, but you want to go back to being what you were before Stafford got there, it just kind of I think you're right. I think it could be the new norm of that kind of relationship where, okay, we're gonna move on. But it's dangerous for a team like Detroit and Houston and Dallas if they say, oh, we haven't really won with Prescott, let's try someone else. Well, yeah, go see if you can win with Andy Dalton. See if that works out for you.
Yeah, but maybe you won as much as you did because of Dak Prescott. Maybe you were. We saw what happened to the Cowboys when Dak Prescott went down. Their season fell apart.
Right.
So maybe the Lions, contended as much as they did because they did have Matt Stafford at quarterback. Forget that they didn't have a running game, and they haven't had a running game for 10 years.
Yeah. I think we're saying the same thing, that, why, if you're the team, why would you want to ship away someone who's been so good to you? I think that's, the Steelers as well. Even though Roethlisberger's at the end of his career, you could say, oh, he really played poorly in that playoff game. His career is over. Well, do you really want to move on to Mason Rudolph? I mean,
no.
That's what I think is, and I think the Steelers are smart. They know that, they don't want Roethlisberger at that cap hit, but they're not a playoff team with Mason Rudolph. So the idea of the Lions moving on is, it's just it kind of baffles me. At least the Detroit thing, moving on from Stafford.
Yeah, I agree, and they're not. And it's going to be interesting to see who they bring in, but Stafford's been the man in Detroit for a while now, for 11, 12 years, and First overall draft pick, I think he was. And
right, yeah.
He has won some games there. But so you identified him as your franchise quarterback, and you've treated him like your franchise quarterback for the last 10 years. And now all of a sudden he's not your franchise quarterback. And it might be more of an indictment on the Cowboys, the Lions. Guys, we brought in these quarterbacks. They've succeeded at a certain level, and we wanted them to be our franchise guys for the next 10 years. But now we don't think we can win with them. So now we're going to go ahead and let them go. So what does that say about you and your evaluation? If Dak Prescott wasn't your franchise guy, why have you treated him like that for the last 3-4 years?
That's true. That's a very good question. Very good question.
So, and I think Dak Prescott's a franchise guy. He's won a lot of tight games for the Cowboys. He's really played well for them. I'd love to see Dak Prescott here in Chicago. I'll take him.
I would take him in Pittsburgh. I might be a little biased. I have Prescott on my dynasty team. I got him really late in my the very first year of our dynasty league. I got him in like the 17th round. So he's been a great player for my team, and I liked him in college. I liked him at Mississippi State before that.
So did I.
So I just like him as a person. I think I've never met him, but I think he's a good person. So
yeah.
And he's gone through a lot of hardship. His mother died when he was in college. His brother died tragically. So he's just somebody that you root for.
Yes.
And that might skew my view a little bit of him as a quarterback, but I think he's a franchise quarterback that I'm shocked didn't get a deal last year.
Yes, I did. Same here. I was really surprised, but then I look at the Cowboys and I say Jerry Jones, and I'm like, okay, that explains quite a bit. So, because that franchise is going to be garbage until Jerry Jones gives up the reins of general manager. But Dak Prescott, he might be one of those guys who needs that new team to be able to emerge as a quarterback, because I think he does have the talent. I think he's on a terrible team that's run terribly. So
I wonder if we have any Cowboy fans listening that would love to weigh in on that. Send us your comment. We got just a few minutes left in the show. You can follow us on Twitter and send us your comments if you're listening on replay. Tom's at TJ Pollen for you Cowboy fans. And I'm at DM Holcomb. Today's show, we talked a lot about the quarterbacks, Tom, and I think it's almost always about the quarterbacks, right? And that's kind of what it was. I think it was that way for the championship games as well. And to end today's show, how about we share just our reactions to the games? And I look at the two games, and not to overlook Mahomes and the Allen matchup, which I think we could see in more championship games to come. Yes. But the Rodgers and Brady matchup was one for the history books, and it was a great game. But again, Aaron Rodgers comes up short in a big game, and he's 1-4 now in championship games. And I don't want to go back to talking about his future, but just his legacy as a quarterback, and looking at Tom Brady's legacy as like he's now won as many NFC championship games as Rodgers has. And that is an amazing stat. And I can't help but gravitate towards that. Again, Brady got it done when it mattered. And it's more than just the quarterback position. The Packers gave up a horrible touchdown right before halftime, which basically cost them the game.
Insane. Yeah, why you're not zoned up and guarding the end zone. Tampa has no timeouts left. Right. And King lets Miller, run right past. He's peeking into the backfield at Brady while his man is running past him into the end zone. It's just insane.
I could not believe they gave up that touchdown. Could not believe it. And then
No.
coming at halftime, you have the turnover, which leads to another touchdown, and just you're in an 18-point hole. And Rodgers almost clawed out of it, but it was too big of a hole.
But Rodgers really misfired on that last drive. He could have run in for that third down touchdown. The lane was wide open for him, and he's done it before. And he sees Devontae Adams double covered at the goal line, and he tries to force the ball into him. I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah.
And then Matt LaFleur kicks the field goal, which is just one of the stupidest moves I have ever seen in my life. And I said it on Twitter at the time. I said, the Packers may not even get the ball back. And what is he doing? You've got to take your chance at tying the game right there. That's it. So I just didn't get that.
I completely agree. And I wonder if Rodgers had run on that third down that you're talking about. And what if he doesn't score, but he gets down to the 3 or the 4?
Right. Exactly.
Do they go for it? And I think the answer is probably yes. And to go for it even from the 8 was the right decision.
Yeah.
So Rodgers absolutely needs to just get a little bit closer to convince his coach, apparently, that they have to go for it in that situation.
Well, his coach should know better anyway.
Yeah.
Even if you don't make it, you're still in a position where a touchdown and a 2-point conversion ties the game. All right. So either you have to stop Tampa Bay because you've tied the game and you're wanting to press it into overtime, or you're trying to stop Tampa Bay because you need that ball back one more time. Well, you kick the field goal, you still need the ball back one more time.
The only advantage they got from kicking the field goal was that a touchdown would then win it. That was the only advantage they gained.
Right. But
they still needed the touchdown.
And I didn't get that move. I think Rodgers never got the move. I think Rodgers' mood after the game was more like trying to swallow the fact that he didn't get that fourth down play. But
that's something that could eat at him for a long time if he doesn't get back to that get back to the championship game again. That he was not given that chance to try and win the game on fourth down, tie the game.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We
got to wrap up here, but I one of the last points I wanted to make and kind of connect Rodgers back with Watson, and I think a lot of and from an outsider's perspective, it's why can't Watson honor his contract, or why can't Rodgers be a little bit more professional after a loss like that? Maybe some haters or fans are asking those questions, and I would make the point of it's a cumulative effect. Watson lost DeAndre Hopkins and gained an aging running back, and he's seen his organization trade away pick after pick for players that, Larry Tunsil was a nice player, but I mean, overall, they just haven't really moved the needle enough to help him win. And then on top of that, he doesn't get the head coach that he wants. Yeah, he's angry. He's mad. And I think Rodgers, it's also been a cumulative effect. Remember, last April, they drafted a quarterback in the first round. Second round, they drafted a running back. They have Aaron Jones already with Jamal Williams. And with their first – how many wide receivers were taken in the first 2 rounds? The Packers don't take a wide receiver. They don't take a wide receiver in the whole draft, and it's one of the best wide receiver drafts we've ever seen at the talent, the depth and talent of that
Even
position.
The Bears got a wide receiver out of that draft.
Right.
I mean, come on.
And all season long, it's been Devontae Adams and just whoever else the Packers can get to work at wide receiver. And it's a cumulative effect with both those guys. But I think particularly Rodgers, and that's what and then on top of that, the fourth down call. So he has a right to be frustrated.
Oh, and it comes down to these guys. They're competitors. They want to win. All right. That's what it comes down to. Deep in their hearts, they want to win. They want to be the guy who, they're quarterbacks because they want to be the guy who does make the play, bring their team to victory. And I think Rodgers just felt like he had the rug cut under him. No, they didn't go anywhere in the first 3 plays, but you never know what Aaron Rodgers is going to pull out of his head on 4th down. It's like it's like he had the rug pulled out from under him, and all of a sudden, you're sitting on the bench watching the clock tick down, and you can't do anything to stop it. And I get the frustration that Aaron Rodgers was feeling at the time. And Deshaun Watson, he wants to win. He was 2nd in the league in passer rating last year. I mean, he's got leg. He can get out of a lot of situations, salvage a lot of situations, but he doesn't see a spot where he's getting the help, where he has the tools around him that he could really make work for him. And he did everything he could with the people he had, with the guys he had. But, it's frustrating for a competitor when you're putting your heart into the game and you just don't see it from the people who are above you.
Yeah,
that's absolutely a frustrating thing.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, maybe Rodgers just wants more money. I mean, we all want more money, right? But yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers. Right. I think Rodgers has kind of. I think that's part of why he's asking for the salary bump this offseason too, because I think he kind of figures, well, if you're not going to put that money towards people that are going to help me win, I'm going to ask for it. Yeah,
that could be the case, right? Could be interesting to see how that plays out, right?
Yeah. So that does it for this week's show. We didn't talk any Pro Bowl, but I think that was probably expected. Okay. That's okay. Yeah. That's okay. They're doing a video game, right? Video game Pro Bowl tomorrow. Did I?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I haven't even paid attention to it. Tell you the truth.
Yeah, I guess neither of us have really paid attention to it. I think that if they do a video game, it might be better than the real Pro Bowl. Maybe they should just play a video game every year.
Actually, I think that would work out great because they play the Pro Bowl. It's hands off. You don't no tackling.
Right. Yeah.
Either that or put flags on the guys on the field and just play like football. It's
that probably would be more entertaining than the real Pro Bowl. But we'll be back next week to break down the Super Bowl. It's going to be a really fun Super Bowl. Really fun talking about it next week. I'm sure Tom will bring all his prop bets. We'll bring back Twitter trivia. We'll have some Super Bowl trivia next week, and enjoy the week between the media. What is it called? Media Week, Super Bowl Media Week. Yeah.
Yep. Media Week.
That always produces some fun stuff. Thanks for making us a part of your Saturday. Again, apologies for starting late, but we will be back next Saturday at noon Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Central.